Welcome everyone, Jessica Chobot here with IGN's PC Holiday Buyer's Guide for 2007. It's been a great year for PC gaming, and here to tell us all about it is IGN's very own PC Editor-in-Chief, Dan Adams. Hello Dan, and thank you for blessing us with your presence today.
You're welcome.
I know, it was quite the intro, huh?
Yes.
So there's been a ton of games coming out. What's going on with good old PC this year?
Well, there have been a lot of good games, especially this fall, and one of the biggest on the list is probably the Orange Box. You know, it combines a lot of games. It's not only Half-Life 2, which was one of the best shooters ever, but it's also Episode 1 and Episode 2, and then you also have got a great puzzle game called Portal, which is one of the most unique and funny games of the year. And then you also have Team Fortress 2, which is an amazing, amazing multiplayer game. You know, it doesn't have a whole lot of maps, but what's there is awesome, and it's got a totally ridiculous cartoony art style that's just, you know, hard not to love. You know, aside from Orange Box, there's also great games like BioShock, which came out in August, actually, so it's been out a little while, but it's got such an incredible art style and just such an amazing vibe in this crazy little underground or underwater world called Rapture. That's kind of a utopia that's fallen down through, you know, a little bit of decay because people found this substance that became addictive, and so everyone went crazy. Anyway, the whole point.
Substances.
Yes. Anyway, the whole point is that you get down there and you don't know what's going on, and you have to fight your way through this. And it's got one of the greatest twists ever in a game, and it just is a great experience the entire way through for a shooter. And lastly, you know, one of the biggest shooters of the holiday season is undoubtedly Crysis, because it's got an amazing technical. You know, the guys who created this, Crytek, have just done an amazing job technically with this engine, and it's probably the most beautiful game we've seen and the most detailed. You know, it's getting to the point where it's photorealistic, and on top of being so beautiful, it's also one of the first DirectX 10 games and has just some amazing gameplay on top of that for a first-person shooter. You've got all these crazy powers you can use. It's a pretty open-ended gameplay, so you can go into an area and just kind of go your own route and find what you want to do. So there's a lot of great things going on with Crysis, but probably one of the biggest draws, especially for people with good computers, is that it is probably the prettiest game we've ever seen.
Well, so speaking of that, I fiddled around with Crysis here and there at demos and whatnot, you know, at events. Like you said, am I going to have to go and steal a computer from NASA in order to play this thing?
If you want to run it on all very high settings on DirectX 10, you probably will. Actually, you just need to, well, you're going to need to fork over a lot of money to make that happen. But the good thing is that it actually does run pretty well on high on DX9, and it still looks beautiful. If you have an 8800 in your computer, like they're still fairly expensive, but that you can run everything on high with an 8800 no problem and still have a good time.
Cool. Now I know a lot of people have heard me say that I'm not the biggest fan of shooters, particularly on systems. I do prefer them on PC, which we discussed earlier, but I'm also a really big RPG fan, so what do I have to look forward to in that regard?
Well, this year we've got actually a really interesting RPG from CD Projekt out of Poland called The Witcher. You know, it kind of flew under the radar, but it's really a great experience. It's got a beautiful world to build on that's actually from, you know, a few Polish fantasy novels that are, you know, no one's ever heard of over here, obviously, but it follows this guy named Geralt, who's a witcher, which is basically a monster hunter. He's been mutated to have faster reflexes and stronger and can use magic and all that stuff. But, you know, he's in this crazy world that kind of mimics our own, where there's a lot of racism, there's a lot of, you know, political infighting and all this kind of stuff that kind of builds a story that's really, you know, sets the world up to be a pretty realistic place, you know, which is unusual for fantasy, where usually things are just happy and fluffy and, you know, there's some great dark evil. But, you know, there's a little bit more to it than that here. And the combat system is really great. You know, it's pretty deep for what it is, and you know, the visuals are pretty stunning. The only problems with it are there are load times that can take a little while, and you know, the system requirements can be a little much. But you know, other than that, it's actually a really fantastic game. And if you're looking forward to an RPG with a good story, this is what you need to look for.
Awesome.
And if real-time strategy is more your thing, then you're probably going to want to look for World in Conflict, which is actually a really interesting game that came out this year that's a little easier for people to get into because it's more of a tactical strategy game than a real-time strategy game. You don't have to worry about resources really or base building. You just have to worry about picking the units you want, dropping them down on the field, and then using them tactically on a gorgeous battlefield with amazing explosions, you know, completely destructible environments and nukes.
So let's just say I have some extra money left over after all my computer upgrades and, you know, raiding NASA, selling the parts for cheap on the black market. What else would I want to buy, possibly?
Well, one of the games actually that's probably pretty under most people's radar is another 4X turn-based strategy game called Galactic Civilizations 2. And this is actually the Gold Edition, which we're recommending this time, because it includes the original Galactic Civilizations 2, which came out last year, and an expansion that came out previously this year. Other titles to look to this holiday are games like Lord of the Rings Online, Shadows of Angmar, which is actually a MMORPG in the Tolkien universe that they keep updating. It's a really good game. There's Call of Duty 4, which is another FPS. It's totally awesome. It's a modern warfare setting, a lot of great weapons, a lot of great action-packed kind of cinematic scenes to it. You got Viva Pinata, which is one of the only games that's really family-oriented on this list. That it's got a lot of really cute creatures. It's more about creativity and puzzle solving than it is killing things, which is nice. And lastly, we have Sam & Max Season 1, which is a compilation of all of the episodes from last year and this year, and put together into one package. It's great cartoony style, really good sense of humor, and adventure fans would be kind of stupid not to pick it up.
Awesome. Well, thanks for the breakdown. You are now free to go and enjoy your holiday vacation. All 2 days of it.
Sweet.
And for the rest of you out there that are looking for the breakdown on our other holiday buyer's guides, you can find Nintendo, Xbox 360, and PlayStation here at IGN.com. And happy holidays to you as well.